Next point is users of database or users of database management system. The users of database can be classified in the following groups depending on their degree of expertise or the mode of their interaction with the DBMS. There are actually 4 to 5 kinds of users. First user is called naive user, or some might say navy user. These are actually new users who have started using database at the early stage. Users who do not need to be aware of presence of database system or any other system supporting their usage are considered navy users. The operations that can be performed by this class of users are very limited and affect a precise portion of the database. That means the users, those who are new to the database systems, are called navy users. They knew only few things, like they know the definition of database, they know the definition of DBMS, and they know 1 or 2 database management system software and how to use them. Okay, those users who have this prior knowledge are simply termed as navy users. Second category of user is called online users. These users who may communicate with database directly via an online terminal or indirectly via a user interface and application program. These users are aware of presence of the database system and may have acquired a certain amount of expertise in the limited interaction. They are permitted with database through the intermediary of the application program. The more sophisticated of these users may also use a data manipulation language to manipulate database directly. This category of user came into existence with the advent of internet. That means users who are accessing the data using internet are simply called as online users. What they know everything related to database, and in addition to that, they might know some keywords that can allow them to manipulate data which is contained in the database. For example, if you have executed Wikipedia, Wikipedia users are online users. In Wikipedia, if we search any information, that information is displayed on the screen, and at the last of that information, there is a link for editing the information. So if we click on that edit link, you will get that portion of text open in a separate window that will allow you to edit or to make the changes into that definition that you have read there. So you are having some permission to maintain changes over Wikipedia. So these users, this category of user is called as online users. Next category of user is called application programmers. We have seen this part in the architecture of or structure of database management system. I will revise that typical diagram for you just to understand in a very easy manner. In that part, we have seen one diagram showing compiled user interface and compiled application interface. So these two components are coming from that application user point that we have started right now. So I told you there are 4 kinds of user, 4 to 5 kinds of user. First one is navy user, second one is casual user, third one is DBA, and last one was application programmer. So the application programmer used database with the help of a programming language. That means they are having their own task to perform. They are trying to create a new software in order to store the information generated in the new software. They need database. So they access database using the programming languages. That is why it is compiled user interface and compiled application interface. Let's move on to the next definition related to the application programmer. Professional programmers who are responsible for developing application programs or user interface utilized by navy user and online users fall into this category. That means the application programs which were executed by navy user or online users, they are actually created by these application programmers. Okay. Application programs could be written in a general purpose programming language such as assembler, C, COBOL, Fortran, Pascal, or PLSQL, and include the commands required to manipulate the database. See, what they are doing is the same. They are accessing the database, but they are not directly accessing the database. They are accessing the database through a programming language. So whatever operation they want to perform, those operations they have programmed in a language, and using that language that will be executed by the user. Next user is database administrator. Database administrator is the main user of database who is responsible for complete execution of database. He is the only user who is having the access to create a new database and manage every single possible executions in every single possible way. So the centralized control of database is exerted by a person or group of person under supervision of a high-level administrator. This person or group of person is referred to as database administrator. So as per the definition, the one who is managing the complete database can be a single person or it can be a group of person according to the size of database and according to the size of organizations. So they are the users who are the most familiar with database and are responsible for creating, modifying and manipulating its three levels. As we have discussed in the first part, DBMS basics, every DBMS is having three goals: defining, constructing and manipulating. So all these three levels of executions are carried out by DBA, who is responsible for creating a database, defining a database, constructing the database and manipulating the database. So he is the most important user for database execution. That is why DBA is the custodian of the data and controls the database structure. DBA is responsible for granting permissions to the user of the database and stores the profile of each user in the database. This profile describes the permissible activities of a user on that portion of the data accessible to the user via one or more user views. Means what? Whenever a DBA will create a new database, the next function he has to perform is creating users. So when the DBA creates the user, while creating the user, he has to create profiles for them. User profiles. What are those user profiles? User profiles are nothing but the restrictions the DBA applies on the user. That means while creating a user, user must have a username, he must have a password. So regarding password, DBA can set the complexity of password. How complex the database user password can be. That means user DBA can set the rules like the password should not be less than 7 characters. That means it should have at least 8 characters. From the 8 characters, one alphabet should be capital, second or any of alphabet should be in small caps, one alphabet should have a special symbol, one number should be there, and password is not allowed to be kept very simple. Some of the users try to maintain their password as simple as they can. For example, some of the users can try their password, can set their password as password only. That means they literally type their password as PASSWORD. Some of the user might assign the password as computer, my documents, keyboard, mouse, CPU. All these simplistic passwords like thank you, welcome, A, B, C, D up to Z, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. All these simple password, whether they should be allowed to set or not, this can be defined by DBA with the help of profiles. So all these profiles creation and managing the profile is the responsibility of the database administrator. The DBA is responsible for defining procedure to recover the database from failures due to human, nature or hardware causes with the minimal loss of data. As we have discussed this part in the advantages, in order to avoid duplication, the data is kept centrally. That means data is kept on only one location. So that becomes another problem. If the location where we have maintained the data, if that gets corrupted or that gets crashed, at that time complete data might get lost. So to avoid this kind of data loss, we need to execute backup procedures. So creating and managing backups. What kind of backup should be maintained, how the backup should be carried out, when the backup should be carried out, every single decision related to the backup is the responsibility of DBA. And while making the backup, the DBA should compulsory focus on if the data get lost. With the help of backup, he must be able to recreate the database or recover the database with minimum data loss. That means only few amount of data could be allowed in loss. Rest of data should be intact. This kind of backup strategy should be applied by the DBA, and this is the responsibility for the DBA user. Okay, so these are the users of database. The next point that we need to discuss is database models. When we are using databases, when we started using databases, earlier, when DBMS came into picture, there were some basic database executions took place. So those basic database executions were hierarchical data model, network data model, and now we are using two most prominently used data models. They are ER data model and relational data model. The sequence was mismatched. Technically the sequence should be hierarchical data model, network data model, ER data model and relation data model. Let's see one by one. Hierarchical data model. As you can execute the keyword hierarchy. When we want to plot our family tree, if we want to draw our family tree, how it can be drawn? The older person in our house should be kept at the top and the younger person should be kept at the last. The same way, if we organize data in a hierarchical manner, that becomes a hierarchical data model. See, in a hierarchical data model, data is organized into a tree-like structure. Actually, it is an inverted tree-like structure. Because in the tree, root is at the bottom. But in hierarchical data model, root is at the top. You will get the idea clear in this diagram. See, there is a root. Then root will have level 1 child. Then level 1 child will have level 2. Level 2 will have level 3. Level 3 will have level 4. And up to n number of levels. Okay. So there is an example. Hierarchical data model. Organization. You can put the name of any organization. That organization might have 3 departments: personal department, finance department and technical department. In personal department, there are 2 members, managers and staff members, supporting staff. Finance department again have 2 managers and support staff. And technical department have managers and engineers. How the data is organized? Firstly, top organizations. That means the main leader of organization. Then the departments. In the departments, the categories of workers. In the workers, you can put the names: managers, supporting staff. Likewise. Next data model is network data model. This network data model was executed by Database Task Group, stands for DBTG, in 1960s. The DBTG model used 2 different data structures to represent the database entities and relationships between the entities, namely record type and set type. Before discussing this network data model, let me tell you some of the basic definitions from ER data model. In order to maintain database, the very first keyword that we need to understand is entity. What is entity? Entity is a thing or object which is different from other thing or object, or any real world object which is distinguishable from other real world object is called entity. Example is, suppose a smartphone. Samsung smartphone is there and Vivo smartphone is there. 2 of them are smartphones, but we can distinguish between them. What is the distinguishing? First one is from Samsung company and second is from Vivo company. the model numbers are different. So we can differentiate, we can see the difference between them. So Samsung phone is one entity and Vivo phone is other entity. Every entity has certain properties, and those properties are called as attributes. Every entity has certain properties, those properties are called attributes. When one entity is having some association with other entity, if we want to maintain an association between two entities, that association is called as relationship. Three definitions you must have got clear. First one entity, second one attribute, and third one relationship. Now focus on this line. The DBTG model uses two different data structures to represent the database entities and relationships between entities, namely record type and set type. Now what is record type and set type? When we have an entity, suppose we take an example of students, first year, second year, third year students. So if we consider students from first year, it's an entity. Second year students, it's an entity. Third year students, it is again an entity. Yes or no? Because we can differentiate between them. First student belongs to first year, second one belongs to second year, and last one belongs to third year. If we consider students from FY only, so all the students are different from each other, but they belong to first year only. So they are having same entity type. That becomes an entity type. That entity type is nothing but record type. We'll see the part here. A record type is used to represent an entity type. Entity type means entities with same attributes is called entity type. So entity type means record type. It is made up of number of data items that represent the attributes of the entity. That will not be clearly understood simply. Record type is simply an entity type. A set type is used to represent a directed relationship between two record types. So if there are two different entity type, first year, all students in first year is one entity type, all students in second year is another entity type. Instead of saying in this way, I will say all students in first year is one record type and all students in second year is another record type. What is the relationship between them? After passing first year, they will move to second year. And after passing second year, they will move to third year. A set type is used to represent directed relationship between two record types. What is the relationship between two record type? That relationship between two record type is called set type. What we said? DBTG model uses two different data structures to represent database entities and relationships. Entities are represented with the help of record types and relationships are executed with the help of set types. This is network data model. A set type is used to represent a directed relationship between two record types. The so-called owner record type and member record type. So record type could be again of two types, owner and member. Have a look in the diagram, you will get the idea clear. College is the owner. Member record type, computer science, IT, mechanical. Computer science will be owner record type for Ajay and Shyam. And Ajay and Shyam are the member record type for computer science. So if we arrange the data with the help of entity type and set type or record type and set type, then the data is arranged with the help of network data model. Actually, these two models, hierarchical data model and network data model, they are not currently in use. They are not used currently. They were used in the earlier database models, which were outdated now. Okay. The next data model that we need to understand is ER data model. Before few minutes we have seen this definition. Anything from the real world, which is differentiable by other thing, then those things are called entities. Any real world object who is differentiable, who is distinguishable, is called entity. To be very simply stated, anything which is different from other thing is called entity. Every entity has got some properties, and those properties are nothing but attributes. When we want to associate one entity with other entity, we need to set one relationship between them. So this complete scenario execute in ER data model. Now what is ER data model? ER data model is the most famously used data model while designing a database. When you want to design a database, that means when you want to create a new database, you need to find out what are the possible entities that has to be included into the database, and how one entity is related with other entity, and we need to set the relationship between one entity and other entity. Okay, see, I will show you one of the diagram that will get it very clear. See here the execution of ER data model. Teacher is an entity, student is another entity. What is the relationship between these two? Teacher teaches student. Entities are represented in a diagrammatic fashion using a rectangle. So teacher is entity, student is another entity. Relationship between them is teaches. Teacher teaches student. In the same way, we can draw the diagram for that entity relationship. See here, there are three entities: developer, website, visitor. These are distinguishable. Visitor is different, developer is different, and website is different. Now we can associate between them. Developer creates website, visitor visits website. Website is the entity executed by two different another entities, developer and visitor. Developer executes for creating and visitor executes for visiting. This is what the relationship. So whenever we want to create a new database, first of all, we need to identify the possible entities which are to be included into the database. Then we need to find out the relationship between them, and after finding out the relationship, we need to draw an ER diagram in this way. We need to draw the ER diagram. To draw the ER diagram, we need to know some of the basic components of ER diagram. To represent entity, we can execute a rectangle. To represent the relationship, we can execute a rhombus or a diamond shape. See here. And to represent the attributes, we can execute the ellipse shape. Ellipse. Book is an entity. Book has a property like author, date of publish. This is how. So whatever database you want to create, first of all, find out the possible entities that you want to create in the database. Find out the possible properties of every entity, and what are the possible relationship between each entity with other entity. And you need to draw a specific diagram for that. After completing that diagram, you will be executing that ER diagram. And to create the database in a physical manner, we need to convert that ER diagram into a relational data model, and that is what our next point is. In this model, the relation is the only construct required to represent association among attributes of an entity. As I told you right now, if I want to execute a new database, I need to plot the ER diagram. So this is how I can execute an ER diagram. See here, developer creates website, visitor visits website. Now this is the design that I have got. Now I want to create the database for this design. So while creating this database for this design, the entities in this diagram are converted into tables in relational data model. I will repeat the line. whenever we want to create a new database, first of all, we need to understand possible entities which are required to create the database. After creating the entities, we need to find out the attributes for them. And after executing the attributes, we need to associate an entity with other entity with the help of relationship. Once we establish all these factors, we can plot the ER diagram in this way. Developer creates website, visitor visits website. After executing this ER diagram, this is a design process. So to create the database in physical manner, we need to convert this ER diagram into relational data model. While converting that ER diagram into relational data model, entities in the ER diagram are created as tables in the relational model, and the relationship between the entities are executed with the help of integrity constraints. This is how we can execute a relational data model. See here. So this is how we can set the relationship between two tables. So department number, department name, location. These are the three columns available in department table. An employee table is having EMP number, E-name, department number, salary, birth date and social security number. If you look carefully, there is a diagram. There is a line between these two tables joining department number and department number. You remember, we have seen this concept of controlling redundancy. So when we are saving this database, employee and department, the employee department number 10, 20, 30, name Ajay, department number 10. What is department number 10? Need to find out? Go to this department table. What is department number 10? Sales. Where it is located? Mumbai. That means Ajay is working in Mumbai with the EMP ID 001, salary 15,000 and date of birth is 22nd July 1995. Likewise. So we can access the tables in relations. So one of the table will be defined with primary key and second table will be defined with a foreign key. This is how the relationship between two tables can be established by converting ER diagram into table-like structures in relational data model. That ends the point and the first chapter is finished. Thank you.